the Navajo Nation
Indian Reservation. That did not work.
Taking 4 kids with us on this trip was great. It gives our kids a chance to see ministry in action more than just outside our home. It helps connect with the people there because family's huge.
There are kids there that we could get along with very well, and we could bring them to Christ since we're kids.
Kids should go to the Navajo Nation because they'd have a really good experience because it's kid friendly. There's a lot of kids there, and if you were to do construction, you'd be able to do something, and they do crafts and everything.
The main reason that we went to the Navajo Nation's Indian Reservation was to build relationships and show them that we're not all bad people, that we can be trusted there.
You have to earn their trust. The white man has broken their trust for generations.
People should take their families on this trip because it gives a sense of unity for the family. It gives a sense of unity to the Navajo people to see a family.
Most of the people live in abject poverty. The majority have no electricity, no running water, and they may have up to 12 people in a living space that might be designated ordinarily for 2 to 4.
On the actual mission we were staying on, we were helping build a house for different groups that'll come in later on in the summer so that they have a place to stay.
And the second part of our day was to minister to the Navajo people, to meet them where they're at with their needs. That means we left the campus and went into the community.
But then off the mission, we were helping widows whose houses were not destroyed but damaged. So we helped one lady who had a fire in her house in 2010.
And we got to work side by side with them, cleaning up their yard. And then we also got to share time together and hear their stories and their struggles and what God's done in their lives.
They get really happy when we made them dinner, or when we played with them, when we interacted with them. The little that we did, they got really happy. So it kind of made me realize just where my focus should be. I should get happy for something that God has shown me with other people.
We showed that you could go with more kids than adults and still accomplish a massive mission.
We were at an orphanage for kids with disabilities, and one of the kids was locked inside of a cage for 9 years and treated like a dog. Now he's at this facility and he's just barely learned how to walk and talk at age 9. My heart was broken for that, and it just made me really just think about how do I view people? Am I gonna pick and choose which people to love or people with disabilities any less? But in God's eyes, we're all God's creation, we're all His children, and no matter what physical, mental, or spiritual disability you have, we're precious in God's sight.
We were there to communicate that we cared for them, that we weren't just sending money their way, but that we were also invested in a relationship and spending time with them.
It's so different to actually go and meet the people and have a relationship with them, and that not only blesses us and speaks to us, but it, I think, encourages them too, just to know that they're supported.
We're there to show our commitment as a church in supporting them. We're there to, increase and improve all of the relationships that we have, and we're there to make new relationships. And then with the people, not just the staff people, but the other people we run into, we're show them love, the love of Jesus.
On a day-to-day basis, our serving looked different depending on the day. A few days we were at the village and just there to spend time with the kids and walk around with them, to play with them, to sit with them, to hold their hand, to give them hugs. Other days we went out into different villages to serve groups of children, to do VBS type programs with school-age kids. We visited women, single women in the slums to encourage them, to pray for them, and to find out how they were doing in the microloan program.
In terms of Western standards, they didn't have much. but their lives were so simple and uncomplicated.
When you meet believers that are really focused on God, you really don't see the poverty because they have such great spirit.
God's still there providing for that poverty-stricken country. Those children in the orphanage having food and a bed, and God keeps showing up in those circumstances. The women in the slums, and He's still there meeting needs. He is so there that it's in your face because we don't see it here as easily.
Seeing God work in the lives of the people back in Uganda, I think that I learned that although they struggle from earthly poverty, they just value their treasures up in heaven so greatly, and it was very eye-opening and humbling to see.
2 years ago when I went to Mercy Child Care, there was very little there. 2 years before that, there was nothing there. When we went there this time, there's 5 buildings. There's a well that's producing. There's a clinic being built. There's, more structures in the plans. And I know those guys are really talented, and I love those guys, but there's 4 or 5 young men, and they could not have done that without God. I mean, that is so God blessing them. They're listening to what God wants them to do and making something happen that just would not be able to happen without God.
I've been to Uganda for 3 separate trips now, and each one is adding layers on to my Christian walk. It's nice to be able to go and form these relationships. It's nice to be able to work alongside somebody else and see where their heart's at for serving their community. And then also coming back and realizing that my Christian walk is not just going to Uganda, but it's also serving my community here and taking the lessons that I've learned back there and serving here in the same way that they do in their country, in their community, for those who are hurting.
I've wanted to do missions for like a longer term, and so I think instead of doing a 2-week team, it was time to take a step of faith and kind of go longer and see if long-term missions is really something that I want to do. I've seen kids that have been brought in who were depressed and just had really hard backgrounds, whether they were abused or just abandoned, neglected, whatever, and just coming in and seeing how they've just completely changed. Like, you see them smiling, laughing, just loving people and like loving on us, and you just see a huge change, and I don't think that is possible without God being in the presence. I went on my first mission trip when I was a freshman in high school. It was to Mexico. We were there for a week. I just really started growing a passion for missions through that. I went to Uganda for the first time on a 2-week trip, and after that, I just grew, over time, just grew a passion for missions, and I prayed about it and continued to seek God in that. And so with that, I started going for 6 weeks and now almost 2 months, and it's just, I've really grown a passion for missions because of the first trip that I went on.
This summer, I went to Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada with MB Mission. There's this church called Christ City Church. I was actually there 2 years ago when it was first planted with Cecil and Tracy Ramos. They had day camp this year, and they needed lots of volunteers so that we could basically herd around these 50 children all over the place. And it was really fun because we had the opportunity to take them to the aquarium, and we had the opportunity to take them to the beach, and we got the opportunity to go to a water park and then just a normal park, and so it was just a lot of fun to get to know these kids. My eyes were opened in a way that I think I just realized once again how important it is to have a Christly example for children. I sometimes feel like, this is pointless, they're gonna grow up and forget about this, they're too young to understand who Jesus is, and just realizing that that's not true, that I think that they can grow up to have very meaningful conversations and meaningful ideas of who Christ is, and they can all be started by something as simple as a date camp. I think just the way that God and the Holy Spirit works in children's lives, it's so powerful, and I don't want to take away from that, and so just realizing that kids are smart and that God desires for children to know Him.
Bună dimineața, Laurel Glen Bible Church. Mulțumesc tare mult pentru tot și pentru mi trimis la România. I have been in Romania for the past 10 months. I just graduated with a degree in psychology, and I knew I wanted to go to grad school for social work, but I wanted to get some life experience, and this experience with working with kids in foster care in Romania was right in line with what I want to do for my career. Romania is a place, and Romanians are very proud people, and so they tend to put up a facade and put on their best clothes and put on smiles. A lot of times when even short-term teams see them, they look happy, they look well-dressed, but there is a darker side to the culture, and a lot of these kids who are smiling are still very broken inside from things that have happened to them in their life. Things like trafficking and poverty are still a huge problem in Romania, and it's not always as easy to see. For me, my personal reason for going was to learn what CTL did as a ministry and what they did to care for the kids in Romania. A lot of it was really relational. We'd try to spend time with the kids and be there for them, be their mentor, be their friend, keep them hearing about the gospel in order to be positive influences in their life. Short-term missions are a great place to start. That's where I started going to Romania and going to India. God used these to pull me towards longer-term missions and to give me a bigger heart for global missions. He never stops pulling you. Once you've had your eyes open to things on the other side of the world, he continues to use that, and he continues to shape your heart and draw you into the global community.
In Haiti, we were working with a ministry called Maranatha Children's Ministries, and essentially they were running a summer camp out of their school in a rented facility next door, where kids could come in the morning, ages kindergarten, preschool to like 14, and they could get 2 meals a day for free and some education so that their parents wouldn't have to send them to an orphanage. I didn't feel like I was just going down to help a big corporation of missions, but I felt like I was really joining the family of the missionaries who were there. The main thing that we were there to communicate to the kids was just that we cared about them, that you're willing to put aside your time and everything that you have back in the States to come here and just be with them.
In mid-June, I went to El Salvador to work with a church that Dana Point that I'm currently attending. We worked with the national surf champion of El Salvador. His father is the pastor of the church that we are partnered with, and he basically does surf camps that allow kids to have opportunities to dream and get out of a cycle of gang activities, which is very prominent in El Salvador. We also went to several orphanages that were in the community, and there we just loved on the kids there that we basically abandoned. Puro Surf allows these kids to have an opportunity to do something else besides being in a gang or sitting around and doing nothing at home. Longer-term missions, the advantage is you're able to fully understand to an extent what these people need, what their wants are, how Christ can best move in them, because you've lived there and you've experienced life with these people. They know you're in there for the long haul, and they know that you're in there for years to come, and that they can trust you, and that your words actually have more meaning now because you've been there and you're actually a part of their community.
I'd say our vision for the trip was to just really encourage the pastors of the Baraka Ministries in Machiliputnam and the surrounding areas, as well as also spend time with the kids and do a vacation Bible school for the children.
We also get the opportunity to go out into the villages nearby, share some Bible stories with some of the children there.
Well, the HIV village impacted me. It was just what it was. People are going there. It's kind of like hospice, only it's a village. And there are tons of kids. Once a day, they get a glass of milk and a boiled egg. Karen said that would be the only meal they receive that day. There they are, fending for their lives for an egg.
You don't know how much longer they really have, and it doesn't seem like that affected the way they live their lives.
And they live with nothing, and being at the village churches, just to see how much they trust in Christ and how much they really don't care about the things they have earthly, I think that just really encourages me.
It's amazing to see how God works and continues to provide pastors and people to share His word and His love there. It's encouraging to see that the church is growing in India.
I expected the church to be under more oppression than what I saw. And maybe I didn't see a full picture. I really doubt that I saw a full picture of the oppression. But everything that I did see was a clear sign to me that the church in India is only growing. It's not moving in a backwards direction.
The Christians there are sharing the gospel with people. They are being persecuted, and they continue to share. And so they give my heart joy in showing me how much they love God. And I get a little bit of an opportunity to encourage them.
I went to India, and when I saw the need, it's like a raging forest fire. And you're coming at it with 1 cup of water. And that's all you have. You take that cup and you ask God to throw it where He can throw it. And you know, without God, that cup doesn't make any difference at all. With God and hundreds and thousands of other people that are helping and blessing, and God is leading them to throw their cups of water on that fire, it makes a big difference.
And in spite of all the persecution in India, I just thought, wow, what else can I do? And then when we walked into their little room right there, along the wall it said, "You are the salt of the earth." And I was just kept thinking about that. And we are there to share the gospel and be part of God's adventure that we have out there. And it's tough, it's overwhelming, it's messy, but you just got to go and be part of that and encourage and spur people on.
From June to August, I was in the Arabian Peninsula with an organization called Pioneers. I went to the Middle East because I knew I wanted to go to the Middle East long term, and I was hoping that this would be sort of a confirmation that God was calling me to there, as well as just making a difference during my summer. The focus of the ministry during my trip was a prayer ministry. We were part of a team started by an Indian pastor living in the capital of the country we were in, who came up with the idea that he wanted to cover the entire country in prayer during the month of Ramadan. We would do different sort of strategic prayer models, like we would prayer drive all around the city, try to cover as much of the city in prayer as we could. We would pray over maps, and we would comfort and encourage any of the long-termers we met. I had never had any idea just how important prayer is. I don't think there's ever really a way of knowing the significance of prayer until you go over there in a place as dark as that. I quickly came to the conclusion within a few months that God wanted me to go overseas and to spread His word abroad where there are no other people that can do that. There are no churches in these places. There are no believers that can spread His word. I am very anxious to get back, and I hope to go back to that same place within a year or so.
And spend how much time?
The rest of my life.